Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. My name is Matthew Colvin. I'll be your host today. And today I'm delighted we'll be talking about software-defined wide area networking, or SD-WAN, with WWT expert Ryan Makelky. Ryan is a longtime self-proclaimed network nerd, his words, not mine, and he's been with Worldwide Technology since 2016. Prior to joining us, he spent some time with both Cisco and IBM. And today, Ryan works with many of WWT's clients on all things networking. So if you're thinking about network architectures, routing and security, switching, all the things, Ryan does that. And clearly, he spends a lot of time focused on SD-WAN. Welcome, Ryan.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good deal. Well, as we do, let's jump right in, and want to kind of set the stage with you and just ask, what is the current state of SD-WAN in the marketplace?
It's interesting, right? Because SD-WAN, it means a lot of different things to different people, and different companies are viewing it either for its original intention of just kind of vary up the amount of transport or the kind of transport they can run over. Where others are looking at it as cloud on-ramps, security enablers, especially cloud-delivered security enablers. So, it's a broad question, and each customer kind of approaches it very differently.
And so, you mentioned that it means different things to different people, right? Can you, expand on that a little bit and tell us a little bit about, what are some of those variances? What are some differences that you hear from people, and what do you think is the right way to really think about it?
Yeah, so it's interesting as far as, SD-WAN was originally to, be able to utilize the internet or cheaper transports, and sort of get rid of MPLS. And, some folks are still looking at it like that. They're like, I need to do that. Or folks are even saying, hey, MPLS is here to stay. We have to have it. But I want centralized configuration, right? I want ease of management. I want to be able to handle, hundreds, if not thousands of branches in a much more facilitated fashion, and the rest of SD-WAN is not necessarily what they're looking for. While others maybe even have SD-WAN currently and are looking to see what does the market look like now, or folks are looking to do security consolidation, right? So if they have a WAN sandwich, right? So firewalls head ending their WAN router or even an SD-WAN edge. They're looking at, why do I have two devices? Do I have to have that? And are there options to maybe consolidate that? Because most people are not looking to have more appliances in their network. They're looking to have less. So that's been the driving force, especially in larger companies, is that security consolidation, and maybe even the on-ramp to cloud delivered security and cloud.
Yeah. Look, I understand that the dynamics in the SD-WAN marketplace have really changed a lot over the past few years. What's driven those changes? What's new and different now, and why did all that happen?
I think the sort of invention of SASE, right, or SSE, the cloud delivered security, and SASE is just the culmination of SD-WAN or some sort of WAN technology and that cloud delivered security. I think that has driven a lot of the change, as well as just the maturation of SD-WAN as a whole. We're 5, 6, maybe even 7 years in, depending on what you're looking at as who started SD-WAN, and things have just matured a lot. In different OEMs have come into the marketplace. They have novel concepts and ideas on how to make life easier, and it's no longer just about fast failover. And brownout mitigation. There's just a lot more to it. And again, it's just the maturity of a product.
Well, as we prepared for today, you told me that you often think of yourself as an SD-WAN Sherpa, right, for clients whom you're talking to. And so I want to take that forward, all right, so we're at base camp. I'm your client. You're the Sherpa. How are we getting up this hill? What are you doing? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so typically what I do is a 90-minute session with customers, right? And I have a slide deck, but it's certainly not the focal point of it. But it's basically, a bidirectional conversation of me asking questions of what's important to them. Is it cloud? Is it security? Is it ease of management, right? The, sort of outage mitigation, that sort of thing. And as I ask those questions and I get the feedback, I go through and talk to different points and maybe concentrate on some areas and skip over others. And then when we get into an OEM selection phase or an OEM, overview, I have a pretty good idea of which ones could meet their requirements and which ones are not. So sort of, enlightening the right paths of the mountain and saying, no, these aren't the right ones for you. So that's typically, like I said, a 90-minute session, and most customers seem to find quite a bit of value in those.
Good stuff. And I, so we're getting up the whole mountain in 90 minutes, but no, I understand. That's like the start of planning and kind of moving to the top of that hill. And I love that you have that sensibility of like being the Sherpa that like, hey, it's your journey, but I'm going to help you along the way. I think that's a great consultancy mindset. SD-WAN now also has important connections to cloud, security, and other aspects of an organization's technical architecture. Tell us about those evolutions and how they affecting organizations. How are those evolving?
Yeah, so the adoption of cloud, or in particular multiple clouds, right? Like the networking the on-ramp to those different cloud service providers are all very different, right? And it takes quite a bit of time and learning to be able to do it correctly and securely, right? And that's not a minor undertaking. That's a lot of work. And especially if you're doing multiple clouds. The idea of SD-WAN, and some OEMs are doing this better than others, but is to sort of abstract and obfuscate that complexity and be like, you know what, give me your credentials, right, for your different cloud provider, and we're going to implement a best practice on-ramp and securely, right, to best security practices as well, and making that cloud service provider look and feel just like any other node or branch on your network. Right, there's people who have been seeing a huge amount of value just in that.
And so what about the security side of that too? Because I know that's a component there, and we may speak about that in a minute, but how does that fit into the idea of SD-WAN today?
Yeah, so depending on how cloud forward a customer is, right? If they're super bought into the cloud, everything's there, all their workloads, they're shutting down data centers, or they have shut down data centers, they can argue that all of their traffic is going to the cloud, whether it's their own workloads or somebody else's, right? But it's going to the cloud. So why do I need to have a firewall necessarily at every single location? That costs money. That takes horsepower, right? When I could do it in the cloud or cloud adjacent, I can send it to one of these SSE providers and do security elastically, right? So if you're doing things like SSL decryption and things that take a lot more horsepower, right? Do that in the cloud, do that to where I'm not buying hardware that's always on waiting for worst case scenario, but it's actually, it's elastic. When you need it, it's there. When you don't, it shrinks back and you only pay for what you use, right? And that sort of north-south security model with the cloud being the northbound side, that makes a lot of sense for those cloud forward folks, right?
Yeah. Well, I know in the ongoing festival of IT acronyms, SD-WAN is also showing up close to SASE and SSE, and you mentioned SSE a minute ago, but tell us about what those two mean, how they connect to SD-WAN.
Yeah, so SASE, right, Secure Access Services Edge, is actually the culmination of SD-WAN or arguably other WAN technologies, but in my opinion, SD-WAN and SSE, right? SSE came afterwards when folks did not necessarily have a WAN networking play, right? But so that SASE acronym is for when you have both of them together. Where again, some of the folks in the market are just looking at that security aspect and not the WAN, or that's not their major focus, right? So that the advent of SSE and again what we talked about, those sort of northbound cloud focused workflows, doing that or steering your traffic in that direction, being able to define a tunnel to that SSE provider, and then define which traffic traverses that tunnel, right? That can be very complex. If you were to do it in the old days, it'd be like policy-based routes and other complex, very manual sort of efforts, while SD-WAN can do that in an automated fashion, right? Point and click, GUI. And again, with some of the SSE providers and some of the SD-WAN or a full SASE play, you can again put in your credentials and there, it's up and running. The tunnels are automatically up. You don't have to mess around with different keys and encryption types and all that other stuff. And then it's just another transport on your network, and you define, which traffic at what point in time or what sort of SLA criteria that traffic traverses those links, right? So it becomes very seamless, very easy of something that would have taken, a significant amount of mental gymnastics previous to SD-WAN.
When you mentioned it a minute ago, the idea of sort of north-south traffic as we prepared for today, you spoke about the importance of thinking through north-south traffic and east-west traffic relative to networks and SD-WAN. So I want you to define those for us a little bit and tell us more about how to think through that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of folks that will tell you that, oh, everything's in the cloud, and that's not necessarily the case. There are folks who still have data centers or still building data centers. They have no plan on ever sunsetting everything. So then you've got that east-west flow, right? How do I get from branches to my own data centers for the workloads that still live there, or from campuses to branch, or that sort of thing, right? And that sort of model is like, okay, well, do I really want to hairpin my traffic through the cloud when that's not where it's going? And do I want to have that castle and moat, architecture of the past of, having everything go into my data center? Can I have a happy medium? Right, and that's that security consolidation story that I was talking about earlier, is having a next-gen firewall that is also your SD-WAN edge, right, that enacts full next-generation security, maybe even some of the localized SSE sort of features, right, and can secure that that east-west functionality without using SSE, right, or in a combination of. I use SSE for my cloud. I use my next-gen firewall capabilities for east-west, and everything's secure, right? And I have an end-to-end security policy without more devices, more complexity, and more importantly, more screens to manage, right? Less chair swivels, as we call it, to manage different, different solutions.
Yeah, well, you've spoken about a lot of different aspects of SD-WAN here today. I'm curious if you'd share with us some typical conversations that you're having with clients today. Maybe one or two that are representative of the types of conversations you're having to explain this, to work with clients to make the most of it.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you both sort of extremes. I'll talk to a customer who again, like, MPLS is not going away. We need it for whether it's a security purpose or regulations, right? They have to have it, but they're like, okay, DMVPN or technologies of the past are just too manual. It's too hard. We have hundreds, if not thousands of sites, and I'm just looking to make my life easier, right? Have a golden config, have a golden image from a software perspective, make it to where fat fingers aren't bringing down my networks, right? They're looking at that sort of original play of what SD-WAN is, and not necessarily, not security, not internet as transport, not LTE as transport. Just, hey, how do I make my massive WAN easier to manage, right? So that's sort of the extreme that I think a lot of folks, OEMs and Gartner and others, have maybe forgotten that those guys still exist. But I talked to quite a few of them, right? That's what they're looking for. The rest of that stuff is going to be sort of frosting on the proverbial cake, or maybe years, 5, 10 years out, because they're just not looking there. They just want ease of management and maybe some ability to utilize internet for new sites that are coming up, or mergers and acquisitions where they can't get circuits in, but they're not looking at whole hog in the cloud, internet only. Versus, the other side of that very, cloud-focused, internet-only, hey, MPLS is gone, we don't want any of it, right? So how do I securely send traffic to the cloud or to the internet and do that in an intelligent fashion, right? So why encrypt and tunnel things that are already, have security enacted somewhere else, like Office 365, right? I can dump that out, direct internet access at my SD-WAN edge and not do anything more with it. Why do I need to, right? Versus, something that needs more security that you're going to tunnel and send up to SSE or send up to your data center, and utilize the internet to do so, right? And have maybe multiple internet connections, multiple internet and LTE, 5G, whatever it is, and be able to have all of those transports, which are significantly cheaper and easier to get, and still have, you know, a top-notch, you know, user experience for all of your employees and customers.
Well, Ryan, as we kind of come to the end here, I always like to end by asking our experts to take a look at the future. So if you think about like where things are headed with SD-WAN, what are you excited to see in the coming years?
You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm looking forward to, but I think the most intriguing right now are companies like Graphiant, right, who are sort of taking the best of both worlds, that previous MPLS model, but not paying the cost and premium of MPLS, but leveraging their own backbone to access places, you know, throughout the world. Like, I think that is really cool. Utilize that internet connection, but only stay on it for a very minimal point in time, right? Go on to their backbone, utilize their circuits, their security, and then things like being able to do business to business in a point and click, in a, you know, sort of a cloud menu, right? So a lot of customers interact with other companies, and, you know, historically you would have racks of routers for customers who, that is their business model, just racks and racks of routers. And being able to do that, to say, no, I'm going to subscribe to this service. I'm going to say what I want to do and with whom. They obviously have to accept it and put their own, you know, or agree to the security, or maybe put in some of their own. But then it's up and running. It's their back, you know, you're utilizing somebody like Graphian's backbone, and the customers are up and running in minutes. And they didn't necessarily have to bring in any circuits besides, you know, an internet that's already there. You know, an inexpensive edge device, and being able to leverage all of that and have, again, the goodness of MPLS without MPLS. I think that's pretty intriguing.
Ryan, it's always a great pleasure to see you. I appreciate you taking time out to show up with us today. So thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me.
And thanks for all of you who joined us today. We've got plenty more WWT expert sessions coming up in the future, and lots in the back catalog. Both cases, head to wwt.com/events. Look for WWT experts, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for coming.